Hey guys, what's up? We're back with some more reactions after dark, and we are of course going to be watching how debt drove a husband to turn his wife into meat for sale. I guess the Tarzan case, which that title sounds crazy. Now, I am doing the thing that I feel is weird, which this video came out like what 3 hours ago or something. Yeah, this video is 3 hours old. Uh, and it's going to be going up the same day because I'm recording this like not too long. It's like about to be 1 p.m. my time, so hopefully I can actually upload this by the time it's ready for the reactions after dark deadline, which is like 6 p.m. So we have like 5 hours to get this recorded and uploaded. Hopefully we can do that. But yeah, this is going to be going up the same day it came out. So hopefully that's not too weird. I just find it's kind of weird to just upload a video, like react to a video that just went up the same day, but we'll see how that goes. Her video already has 17,000 views, so I think it's probably okay. We'll see. I'm pretty sure like nobody is just like immediately reacting to something like this that fast. So anyways, last time we left off, we had watched Chinaverse as usual, but what was it about? It was about the he was like a Chinese actor, I guess, right? Just a Chinese celebrity who um kind of was like trying to throw her kids away, her surrogate kids away, but it was more complicated than that. She just got into a lot of trouble and had China erase her from existence, essentially. Just from China, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure she's probably still in social medias that don't abide by China's rules, but she got deleted from existence by China. They go watch that video if you haven't seen it. I guess we just get straight into this. The model, almost forgot my model right now. I've upgraded it to like version 1.3. So it's just like minor changes here and there. Updated the like emotions a bit that I never use. Because if you have like, angry is upgraded to that. We got sad now, sorrow. That's still the same, basically, just the color's a bit different, I think. New one, we got head empty. We have the hammer, like we can bring out her hammer from the show. Though I need to see how this works in VNAND when you can actually move your hand, see if that's okay. And this, I was just playing around with this, but we can go like dark mode. Yeah, I just wanted to see like how that would look. But yeah, we could get into it now. Oh, where's
Imagine you're sitting outside.
It's freaking out. Let's roll that back.
Imagine you're sitting outside, enjoying the breeze and sipping your favorite cold drink. Everything feels calm and peaceful. Then an old man approaches. He looks frail, thin, and worn out like someone who's barely taking care of himself. He offers you some freshly butchered meat to buy. Maybe you feel a little sympathy.
Okay, so that's what we mean by meat for sale. I didn't like. I forgot to chime in on that, but he's saying he's turned his wife into meat to sell. Meat for sale could mean many things, but we mean literally. It is. He's trying to sell chunks of his wife to be eaten.
Maybe you think, why not? He probably just needs a bit of money to get by. But then when you open the bag, instead of beef or lamb, you find a human head. This shocking case went viral across Indonesia. It was about a man who walked around his village selling meat from his wife's body. This is the story of Tarsum.
Now, I think this is me an ad read here. I'm gonna have to see.
Hey friends!
Yeah, ad read, because I did kind of notice that before starting this. So yeah, I don't know if he says the guy's walking around with this wife's head. I feel like that is familiar. Like Stephanie might have done something on this one on Rotten Mango. Since I swear there's like one on her channel that's talking about a husband walking around with his wife's head in a bag. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a completely different story. I don't know. Also, I don't know what we're. Wait, what are we looking at? I don't know what these are. So I'm just not going to. Uh, it's that's Steam. I literally don't know what the heck we're looking at. I don't think I want to know what we're looking at, so I'm just going to pretend. I think it's for your face, but uh, anyways, yeah, I don't know if Stephanie's done a video on this Tarsum case before. I'm not sure. It seems too familiar not to be. Okay, we need to go back.
May 3rd, 2024. A cold day in Chisuntrol, a small village in the Rancha district of Ciamis, West Java. Usually around the season, rain pours from early in the morning, and people stay home, bundled up, sipping something warm. But not that day. It wasn't raining, just chilly. The sun hadn't yet risen high, and most people stayed inside, except those who had to go to work. That included Yo-Yo Tarya, the local neighborhood chief. It was a weekday, so as usual, he was already preparing for work. Around 7:30 a.m., just as he was getting ready, he got a call from one of the neighbors. They said that Tarsum, the man known for butchering and selling sheep at the local market, had gone mad again. Yo-Yo thought maybe he had tried to harm himself like he'd done before. So he headed toward Tarsum's house to check on him.
Okay, so this is something this guy's done before. Well, gone mad, which we're just gonna skate over that. But I guess he tried to hurt himself at one point. So he's just known for doing that. But now I'm guessing we're gonna see that that's not what they meant. They meant that his wife has now been, diced up.
But before he got there, he spotted him, standing near the village cemetery, holding a blood-stained plastic bag. From a distance, Yo-Yo could hear him shouting, trying to sell meat. And that alone struck him as strange. Why would he be selling meat on foot right there when the market was just around the corner?
Okay, this is Tarsum. I don't know what that implies. I don't know if this is the place or what.
Then Tarsum noticed Yo-Yo.
Okay, so Tarsum is the actual guy. So that's actually a picture of Tarsum himself.
And started walking toward him, still gripping the bag.
I'm assuming that picture wasn't him in the act. It was just an old picture of him just walking through the village. I guess he really doesn't understand what he's done. He's like, is he really going to try to sell this to like the police chief or whoever this is?
He smiled and asked, "Do you want to buy some meat, sir?" Still puzzled, Yo-Yo asked what kind of meat it was. And Tarsum replied, smiling, "It's Yanti's meat." Yanti
I mean, yeah.
was his wife.
Yeah, that's what I'd have to assume, that it's hers. But like, you could argue, like, oh, it's something that Yanti made. But clearly that's obviously not what has happened.
The answer hit Yo-Yo like a jolt of electricity. Without another word, he turned and ran. He sprinted to the nearest police station and didn't stop until he got there.
Okay, so this was just like not a police officer. This was just the chief? I could have sworn they said chief, but... I'm guessing like just chief of the village, but not actually...
Not long after, the police arrived in the village, and thankfully, they found Tarsum still nearby. But what they saw was beyond horrific. He was now dragging his wife's mutilated body parts into a neighbor's house. The story exploded across the internet. It was...
Why was he taking them to a neighbor's house? That's weird. What is he going to achieve out of that? Did the neighbor want to actually buy them, eat them? Like, what?
It was all anyone could talk about. What had happened in this quiet, peaceful village? Who was this man? And how could someone go so far as to dismember his own wife and try to sell her like meat at the market? His name was Tarsum. He was 50 years old, and not much is known about his background, or about Yanti, his wife, who was around 40.
Okay, so he was pretty old.
People who knew him described him as quiet, calm, and hardworking. He had moved to the village with his wife and 2 children around 2010. At the time of the murder, only their youngest child, who was still in school, lived with them. Tarsum made a living herding sheep. He owned a few sheep and goats, selling them live or butchering them and selling the meat at the local market. He also managed a small farm. Neighbors said he was good to his animals, fed him carefully, talked to them gently. He was known to be cheerful. He
Had a couple motorcycles there, I saw.
always greeted people with a smile and said things like "good morning" or "have a nice day" whenever someone passed by. He didn't look like a man who would one day butcher his wife.
Yeah, so are we saying that he literally went mad? Because if all outside appearances seem to just be like a normal guy, it's like, wait, he's just gonna butcher his wife out of nowhere? That doesn't make sense.
But clearly, something had been building for a long time. Just like many others in his village, Tarsum didn't come from money. He had some livestock, but his house was small, modest, just enough to provide a roof over the heads of his wife, his 2 children, and himself.
I don't know, it looks like a nice place. Like, you got 2 motorcycles there, 3 possibly, because I don't know if this one, you can't even see it, but there's one here, like way over here. I can't tell if that's just a bike or a motorcycle. Like, I'm assuming these are motorcycles over here. Or just like electronic bikes, but like this house seems fine. It looks like a decent house. Plus you have all these like these motorcycles must have not I mean they must have been expensive, right? Or maybe they're not. I don't know how much they cost over there.
The animals he raised were more than just income. They were his only real treasure. Not much is known about what his wife Yanti did for work, but one thing stood out. Despite their hardships, the family made an effort to give back. Neighbors remembered them for helping others, doing small acts of charity, and showing up for the community when they could. As for Tarsum's extended family, they weren't nearby. He lived only with his wife and kids in the village. And in times of struggle, it seemed struggle was the only constant. Raising animals and scraping together a living in a small rural village is backbreaking work. Tarsum spent his days out in the fields, tending the farm and taking on manual labor jobs wherever he could, all just to put food on the table. But when prices of basic goods began to skyrocket, his livestock weren't ready to be sold yet, so he turned to neighbors for help. At first, it was small things, borrowing rice, sugar, eggs, essentials. But eventually, even asking for that became too painful. He was embarrassed. So he turned to loan sharks, people who would lend him money, no questions asked, at a price.
Is that what we're saying was the catalyst for this? Got into debt from loan sharks and then just butchered his wife to make that money back, but that doesn't make any sense. Again, like did he just like lose his mind out of nowhere?
When it was finally time to harvest and sell meat, he had hoped it would be enough to ease the burden, even just a little. But buyers were scarce. People in the village couldn't afford meat either. His income didn't improve, and so he borrowed again. Loan after loan until one day it all snowballed. By the time of the incident, investigators reported that Tarsum's total debt had reached 100 million rupiah, about 6,000 US dollars.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask like how much in USD is that? Am I gonna have to look that up? Yeah, $6,000. That is a lot of money. Probably like even more so for them. So again, that can't just be the only catalyst. It's like I'm $6,000 in debt. I guess I'm gonna have to chop up my wife. That doesn't make sense.
For a man with almost no income, it might as well have been a mountain. The weight was crushing. The cheerful, friendly man neighbors once knew began to change. His smiles faded. He kept to himself. He grew quiet, withdrawn. Still, behind closed doors, the cracks were becoming louder. People living next to his house said they often heard shouting from inside. Fights, arguments. Some even claimed they heard loud banging, possibly someone being hit. Yanti had reportedly reached out to both her family and Tarsum's, telling them she was worried about him. She said he wasn't the same, that something inside him seemed to be breaking. Their families assumed it was the pressure, the financial weight was eating away at him. And in Indonesian culture, the burden of providing for the family still overwhelmingly falls on the husband. The man is expected to be the breadwinner. And when that role becomes impossible to fulfill, shame, guilt, and stress begin to take root, sometimes quietly, sometimes violently. Yanti's family tried to get him help. They contacted the local community health center, asking if someone could assess his condition, see if he might be suffering from a mental health issue. To their credit, the health workers responded. A team, doctors, and staff visited Tarsum at home.
I'm surprised that it's actually just that easy. Be like, hey, we're worried about our family member being under too much stress. They might be suffering from mental health issues. Can you go check on them? And they're like, oh yeah, we'll go. And they just stroll up to the house and just like that, with a bunch of doctors and whatnot, just to see if they're all right. I feel like we can't do that here, right? I don't think you can just call someone and be like, hey, can you assess the mental health of my family member? And they'll be, oh yeah, sure, we'll be there in like 5 minutes. Like what? I mean, you can put a what is it called? I forget what it's called. A welfare check. It can't be called that, right? When you call the police on someone that you think is going to hurt themselves. A wellness check? It's called a wellness check. I don't know why I said welfare. That's why I knew that sounded like weird, because it's obviously not welfare. A wellness check on somebody. It's like that, but you actually just send doctors instead, it seems. But I don't think we can do. I don't think we have an equivalent to this over here, right?
They gently encouraged him to go in for a simple medical and psychological checkup. His family was hopeful. They thought this might be the turning point, and maybe finally they could get some answers. But after a full evaluation, the results came back normal. The health center couldn't find anything wrong, no clear signs of illness, physical or psychological. To them, he appeared stable. Still, they didn't leave him empty handed. As a precaution, they prescribed medication for anxiety and depression, hoping it might help.
Okay, so they didn't assess anything, but they did give him antidepressants. Which again, like, what? Like, you can just call doctors to come over and be like, is there anything wrong with my family member, or is there anything wrong with this person? And they'd be like, okay. And then if they think there's something wrong, or if you, and apparently in this case, if they don't think anything's wrong, they can give you some antidepressants. And we're talking about a family that is impoverished, right? And they can just easily have access to uh, psychiatric doctors, question mark, that can just come over willy-nilly like that. Like, what the heck?
For a while, things seemed to settle. Tarsum followed the doctor's instructions, took his medication, and there were no reports, no signs of violence, no unusual behavior. People began to hope that maybe this really was a mental health issue, that maybe with treatment, he was starting to heal.
Yeah, like, did these antidepressants actually cause him to go mad instead, though?
But then something shifted again. It began when a man showed up in the village. He was tall, broad-shouldered, someone with the build of a debt collector. He didn't look like someone just passing through. He looked like someone with a purpose. He started walking around asking villagers one question: where is Tarsum? He didn't seem aggressive at first, just direct and focused. So some people pointed him in the right direction, toward Tarsum's house. But as he walked off, others couldn't help but feel uneasy. They started eavesdropping as he reached the home. They say the man didn't even call out for Tarsum. He just banged on the door and demanded the money, loudly. He even shouted the amount, 100 million rupiah. That was the first time many villagers realized just how deep Tarsum's debt had gone. The number was shocking. For someone who lived as modestly as Tarsum, it was hard to imagine. After a few minutes with no response from inside, the man gave up and left. 3 days later, on the night of April 30th,
So that's it? You just, like, bang on the door, nobody answers, I'm just gonna leave? What?
2024, Tarsum showed up at Yo-Yo's house, the neighborhood chief. There was no
So, Yo-Yo, I think, was the guy, again, that we saw at the beginning of the video, who saw Tarzan walking around with Yantis? Question mark? Yantis meat, quote unquote.
prior appointment. It wasn't a patrol night, and they hadn't planned to meet. So when Yo-Yo opened the door, he was surprised to see him. He invited him in, asked what brought him by. But Tarsum didn't answer. He just sat down, eyes fixed on the floor, not saying a word, no eye contact. He was just silent.
Well, that's weird, like, someone just comes into your house, sits down, stares at the floor, doesn't say anything.
And then finally he spoke. Just one sentence. Please take care of my youngest. Yo-Yo
That's weird. Obviously, you know something's bad's gonna happen. Like, he already had it premeditated then? Like, he already knew what he was gonna do? But again, how does that save anything? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I guess if we're trying to rationalize it, I mean, wife's gone. Maybe you make enough money to take care of the kids, but if you don't, your wife's gone and you're gone to jail, so someone has to take care of the kids. Thus, you leave the kid off with someone who does have money by eliminating both parents, by, you know, actually eliminating your wife and then you getting thrown into jail. But it's like, is that the idea here? Is that what he was trying to do? That seems crazy.
Yo-Yo froze. The words hung in the air like a warning bell. He asked what he meant by that. Why would he say something like that? Was something wrong? But all Tarsum offered was a faint smile. I'm okay, he said. I might go to Kalimantan. He explained that a friend in Kalimantan had offered him work, help building a fish farm. Maybe it would give him a fresh start. Maybe things would get better. It sounded hopeful, but Yo-Yo felt something wasn't right. There was a heaviness in Tarsum's voice, a look in his eyes he couldn't shake. So he pushed a little, asked again if anything was going on. Was there trouble at home? Was something wrong between him and Yanti? But Tarsum just shook his head and kept saying everything was fine. Later, after the incident, Yo-Yo would learn that Tarsum had visited several homes in the village that night, but not to say goodbye, not to talk about his youngest child. He asked them to come to his house, told them to stop by around 7 p.m., said he needed help with something. Yo-Yo's instinct wouldn't let him rest. He decided to go check on Tarsum anyway. When he got close to the house, he didn't find peace or a warm welcome.
Okay, what do you mean by that? Yeah, so again, this is already premeditated. He knows what he's going to do. He's going to have everyone come over and buy this meat that he has. But, like, I feel like he's not thinking clearly at all about what he's going to do. Again, that's what I'm asking. Did the antidepressants actually cause this? Did they actually mess him up in a way to cause him to do this? Because I don't know. I don't think the stress from before would have made him do this. This seems like something else got added to the mix. Like maybe the antidepressants, like I don't know what you would say they do, because they don't make you happy, right? They make you into nothing, correct? Is that how they work? Like they don't have the opposite effects. They just turn you into someone who doesn't feel anything. So is that what happened? Like he was already stressing out about everything in life, loans, not making any money, etc., etc. But then started taking the antidepressants, and they just turned him into a blank slate with no emotions. And then he's just like, "Oh yeah, I know what I have to do. I can just sell my wife." Like what? That's where I'm at now.
Instead, he heard a woman screaming, then loud banging from inside. He rushed in, along with a few other villagers, and what they saw chilled them to the core. Tarsum was on the floor, his own hands wrapped tightly around his neck, trying to choke himself. His face was turning red, his breath shallow, and his body was shaking.
That is weird. Like, how do you even like choke yourself out? Because if you do it after a certain point, you're going to lose the strength to choke yourself, and then thus stop choking yourself. Thus, you're going to regain consciousness, right? Maybe you can do some damage. I don't know. Like, I was not. That was like out of left field. I was not expecting to hear that he's like choking himself out. I thought he'd be in a scuffle with his wife, but it wouldn't make sense if he was scuffling with her and the villagers show up and they stop him, right?
Yanti was right beside him, fighting to pry his hands away, desperately trying to stop him from killing himself. If she hadn't been there, if the neighbors hadn't come in time, he might have succeeded. They almost had him, but just when they thought he calmed down, Tarsum broke free once again, and this time he turned violent toward himself. He ran headfirst into one of the wooden pillars inside his home. The sound was sickening. Blood started to pour from his head.
Oh yeah, this is the him going mad, right? I forgot. This is the mad scene. This is him self-harming himself, right? So it actually wasn't him thinking about, butchering his wife. He wanted them to come over because he would have assumed that he succeeded in exiting, and thus they would need to show up to get rid of his body, right? So that's what he was telling them to come over for, but he just didn't do it fast enough or wasn't successful enough with it.
But he didn't stop. Staggering out of the house, he slammed his skull against a metal electricity pole. Then, against the neighbor's brick wall, he dunked his head into a rainwater basket and held it there. Then, as if that wasn't enough, he threw himself against the nearest coconut tree. It was chaos. Villagers came running, more and more people joined Yo-Yo in trying to restrain him. Only after several men got hold of him did Tarsum finally stop. They brought him home, and his breathing was erratic. His face was drenched in water, blood, and mud, but he was alive. Then they looked at the wound and realized it was worse than they thought, so they rushed him to a doctor.
Yeah, I feel like we have like stacks of issues here because now it's like even more things are adding up. So first off, we have all the stress from what's going on in his life. Sure, that wouldn't have caused him to do this to his wife, possibly, but that's like again, that's not enough. But then he goes on antidepressants. These antidepressants might be blanking out his personality and just his emotions in general. So he's not thinking clearly on that front either. Now stacked on top of that, him like going mad or somehow assuming that exiting is the best thing he can do. Thus, he tries to exit, does a lot of damage to himself. He slammed, allegedly, his head against a lot of things. He probably could have caused himself a lot of brain damage, right? He was suffocating himself, might have caused brain damage, slamming his head into the walls, brain damage, trying to drown himself, again, brain damage. So now we have like 3 stacks at least, right? The overwhelming stress, the antidepressants, brain damage. See if there's anything else on top of
Later
that.
that day, once things had calmed down a bit, Yo-Yo sat down with Yanti. He needed answers. What had happened? Why had Tarsum exploded like that? Yanti told him that earlier that morning, Tarsum had suddenly gone into a rage. No warning. He had thrown things around the house, attacked her, and eventually tried to choke himself in front of her. When Yo-Yo asked about the rumors about the enormous debt and the debt collector, Yanti admitted she had heard the same, but Tarsum had insisted everything was under control. He told her he'd already sold his car and paid off most of the major loans. There were a few smaller ones here and there, but his family was helping manage those. And during all of this, as if none of it had happened, Tarsum was calm. He smoked a cigar like usual, smiled, laughed a little, just like that, back to normal. But that normal didn't last. Fast forward to Friday morning, May 3rd, 2024. In the village, days start early.
This is pretty recent. It's not even old because she started this story in like 2010 or something, right? Earlier in the 2000s, but now we're all the way back up to 2024.
By 3 a.m., people are already headed to the market, preparing their stalls or shopping for the day. Around 7:30 a.m., Yanti was getting ready to go to the mosque. She had been learning to read the Quran there, and it gave her a chance to connect with other women in the community. But she never made it. Just as she stepped onto the road near their home, Tarsum attacked her. He was waiting. With a large wooden stick in his hands, he struck her hard, and then again and again. Most of the blows landed on her head. Her skull shattered, blood splattered across the road, the ground, even on Tarsum himself. Her bones cracked under the weight of each hit. And when she collapsed, bleeding from her mouth, her ears, and head, you might think that was the end of it. But it wasn't. Instead of walking away, Tarsum went back to the house. And this time he came out with a kitchen knife. He stood over Yanti's body for a moment, then sat down beside her and began to cut. First her legs, then her arms, then again leg, arm, until every limb was severed from her torso. Then he split her body in half.
Now we're saying he did this in like just out in the open. So did anybody see this? I mean, people said he's gone mad, but that's because they saw him trying to sell like her literal head.
All the parts, her limbs, her head, her torso, were stuffed into a large plastic bag, the same kind he used when preparing and selling sheep meat at the market. And then he got dressed, just like any other market day. Only this time, instead of heading toward the market, he strolled through the neighborhood, asking people if they wanted to buy meat. One neighbor heard him shouting, "Come and buy Yanti's meat." At first, no one could process what that meant. But one man, alarmed by the tone of Tarsum's voice and the bag in his hand, called Yo-Yo. At first,
Okay, so no one was like super suspicious. It's like, oh, that sounds kind of weird, but maybe he just means like some meat that she prepared, you know. But they were at least slightly suspicious, and then that's how we get to the point where Yo-Yo saw what happens.
Yo-Yo assumed it was just another episode. Maybe Tarsum had hit Yanti again. Maybe it was like last time. But when he saw the blood, and the bag, and the calm in Tarsum's eyes, he knew. This time was different. Yanti was gone. He didn't wait. He ran full speed to the nearest police station. And he left Tarsum standing there, near the village cemetery, alone with the bag still in his hands. Not long after Yo-Yo ran to the police, another villager spotted Tarsum again. This time, he was squatting near a post ronda, a neighborhood watch post where local men usually gather at night.
It's just like a random picture they have of Tarzan.
He wasn't just sitting there, he was cutting something. The man walked closer, curious at first, until he saw what was in Tarsum's hands. A human leg. In one hand, Tarsum held the leg, in the other a knife. He was calmly slicing the limb into smaller pieces, like it was just another animal he'd butchered. The man froze, his heart dropped. Then someone screamed, and in moments, the village erupted. People
Like, what do you even do in that kind of situation, right? If you're just like walking down the street and you just see someone pull out a leg and start carving it. I think over here you would just assume it's like some sort of like goof, like a prank or something of that variety, right? You wouldn't just assume someone's actually doing that, which is a problem, right? Is to just assume whatever you're seeing isn't real. Because then if it is real, well then you're possibly letting this person get away. Because if everybody thinks it's a prank, then no one's going to call the cops. But then, I don't know. If you call the cops on any little thing that you see, then that's also a problem. I don't know.
came.
So I feel like it's understandable to call the cops on someone who pulled out a human leg and started carving it up in the middle of the road. So there's also that.
Running, others started recording on their phones, and when Tarsum realized he was being watched, he didn't try to run. He simply dragged the body parts toward a nearby house, leaving a trail of blood behind him. It wasn't long before the police arrived, but even then, his arrest wasn't easy. Tarsum still had the knife in his hand. He waved it at anyone who came close, ready to fight. In one now viral video, a member of the Indonesian military is seen wrestling with Tarsum, trying to pin him down. In an interview, the officer later said, "I might have lost my life if he'd overpowered me." Even as people grabbed him, Tarsum screamed, scratched, tried to wriggle free like an animal cornered. Eventually, with no other choice, they dragged him across the village and forced him into a police vehicle. Tarsum was taken to the Ciamis District Police Station for questioning. At first, no one could get through to him. He wouldn't make eye contact.
Yeah, get out of what happened here, other than just like stack of issues that just drove him crazy. I think he had to have gotten a lot of brain damage from the one incident of him just, losing it and trying to exit. I feel like this doesn't make sense for him to be acting like this, right? And doing that to his wife, going feral basically here with the police in the village. I think he just suffered a lot of brain damage from that incident, which was possibly caused by the use of those antidepressants slash stress. I don't know. Because it's so out of left field that I feel like there has to be extra stuff here that would have caused something like this.
He cried, sobbed, sat alone in his cell asking over and over, "Where is my wife?" He drifted in and out, sometimes just staring blankly through the bars as if he were waiting for a punishment he couldn't even process.
And this is like a moment of psychosis or something? Is that what we're going with?
But slowly, he began to speak. During one of the early interrogations, he broke down in tears before answering any questions. Investigators finally got a clearer picture of what had happened.
Do you think she was a sheep? Did he lose his mind and thought she was a sheep and then like butchered her like any of the other sheep? I don't know.
According to Tarsum, it all began with an argument.
Okay, no.
They were talking about money, debt, pressure, and something inside him snapped. He admitted to killing Yanti. On May 5th, 2024, police formally charged him as the sole perpetrator under Articles 338 and 340 of the Indonesian Criminal Code, premeditated murder, punishable by life in prison or even death. But during his time in detention, police noticed his behavior changing rapidly. One moment calm, the next agitated. He would hit his head against the wall, bang it against bars. His moods swung like a pendulum. Out of concern, investigators requested a full psychiatric evaluation.
Yeah, like he's taking like even more brain damage from bashing his head against a wall. Even further now.
He spent 14 days in the psychiatric ward, and afterward, doctors concluded that Tarsum had a mental disorder, severe enough that he couldn't be held criminally responsible.
Okay, but did he have this before this all happened, or was it afterwards? Again, he got a checkup, right, by them, and they said he was fine. But it might have just been they didn't have enough time with him to see that something was wrong. Or again, was this all brought up by the brain damage from him hurting himself?
He was released from criminal charges. Instead, on September 4th, 2024, he was transferred to Marzoekimari Hospital in Bogor, a mental health facility for long-term treatment. His condition reportedly improved, but when word got out that Tarsum might eventually return to the village, the community was firmly against it. In the end, authorities made the decision to transfer him again, this time to Centro Fala Martha, a rehabilitation center in Sukabumi, on September 20th, 2024. There were whispers that after rehab, Tarsum might be moved to a social welfare facility for people with psychiatric disabilities. But beyond that, his trail went cold. His current whereabouts are unknown.
Okay, so that's just what happened with that. I don't know how to feel about that because again, it's just so weird for him to do this, right? And like someone died, but maybe he is really just mentally ill, and it is the like case. Can you really blame someone who's like extremely mentally ill for what they do? So, I mean, they could have just left him in the psychiatric place, right? So I guess he's just going to be living around here and there from now on. Is I'm guessing he's out? Question mark? Because we don't know where he's at right now, right? So he must be out, which doesn't make any sense. So now that I'm realizing what year this took place in. This took place in 2024. It's only been a year, and he's already out of the psych ward? Question mark. And just living in like a home for people. I mean, he is pretty old at this point, so
Videos of that day, of Tarsum walking around with Yanti's body parts in hand, spread quickly across Indonesia. The case shocked the nation. But as the public reacted to the horror of it all, two innocent children were left behind. Children who now had to live with the label, the murderer's kids. They moved in with relatives trying to start over, trying to forget. But in a village where everyone knows everyone, moving on isn't easy. Their lives would never be the same.
I thought he only had one kid that were living with them, and like they were in school. Like they were old enough to be in like a decent tier of school, uh like number in school, like maybe middle school or high school is what I mean by that. I guess not. And where did the second kid come from? I know they had multiple kids, but she said they were only living with one kid at the time. Did they have another kid during this? That like during him like getting into debt, I'm guessing. Like they had one kid living with them when all this started, and then at some point during that they had another kid, and then that's when this happened. He went crazy.
And still, people talk about Tarsum. Some see a cold-blooded killer. Others see a man who needed help, who cried out in pain long before the crime, but no one really listened. So how did this happen? His family actually did the right thing. They contacted the local health center. A team came to his home. They gently persuaded him to get examined, and he did. But the results came back normal. Because in many rural areas, mental health screenings are limited in scope. Clinics are understaffed. Doctors may not have specialized psychiatric training. And unless someone is showing severe psychotic symptoms right in front of them, many issues like depression, paranoia, or personality disorders go unnoticed or unrecorded.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that earlier. Like they didn't have enough time to deduce anything. Like when he got the second uh, treatment, he was there for like 2 weeks, right? So that was enough time to be like, okay, yeah, there's something wrong with this guy.
Add to that the cultural pressure. In communities like this, men are expected to be stoic, quiet, and resilient. The idea that financial stress or emotional breakdowns could be medical issues just isn't widely accepted. And so, warning signs are missed. Outbursts are seen as bad temper. Withdrawal is mistaken for tiredness. Strange behavior gets brushed aside until it's too late. So, this case again shows how untreated mental illness, poverty, and social stigma can lead to tragedy. So, what do you think? Was this a story of evil, or was it a breakdown of one man and the system around him? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story made you reflect, even for a moment, check in on someone around you, because sometimes the people who need help the most don't know how to ask. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.
Alright, that was that video. Again, it still just doesn't add up on just, snapping one day and then butchering your wife, right? Unless, again, he was just suffering from mental illness his entire time and nobody knew, somehow. But I feel like it's still stacks on stacks on stacks. So let's assume that he had mental illness before and it was just being kept under wraps somehow because things weren't bad enough for it to flare up. If we want to use, if we want to say it like that. So underlying mental illness, uh, a whole lot of stress, antidepressants blanking out your emotions and personality, going mad and then trying to off yourself, which caused probably a lot of brain damage in the process from banging your head against a wall and like suffocating and drowning and all that. Uh, and then that's all added up to him butchering his wife, right? I think it's just like a huge like list of things that got us to this point. I would say. Yeah, crazy story as usual. I think that's all I have to say for this episode. So guys, thanks for watching. Remember to buy my stickers or think about becoming a member. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed because we're working on watch time and subscribers. And don't forget we have a throne now as well. And shout out to the members, EmmyStarr, RaleyDrew, and alexgkiller 880. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Tune into the next episode. Like, subscribe, comment. You know the do. See ya.